Hi everyone. So today we are going to discuss one of the CIS control that is access control based, and this is the again the part of the CIS top 20 control series by 𝐂𝐴𝐒. So let's get started. So we are going to discuss control 14, that is control access based on need to know. So before we get started, right? So there is little bit around me. I'm security analyst by profession. I also listed as a security researcher by Indian government in their newsletter that is published by NCIPC RPDP. I have also spoken at different conferences like OWASP, DEF CON Cloud Village, OWASP Bay Area, besides Hacker Meetup, and different community platforms like NULL and the InfoSec. I'm also a member of different communities such as NULL, InfoSec Girl, and the Lean Circle. So before we get started, let me give you a brief overview, like what is the agenda of today talk. So we are going to discuss control definition, and why are we discussing this? That is something to do with the requirement, and I'll be saying why because I almost have why question. So yeah, why are we discussing this? Then implementation, then risk associate. The implementation, it's like different group, and we are also discussing about sub controls. Then risk associate with the control and the benefits the control having and the tools. Okay, so we will be covering two definition that is based on control version 7 and control version 8. So what is control version 7 definition? The process and tools used to track, control, prevent, and correct secure access to critical assets such as information, resources, system according to formal determination of which person, computer, and application have right and access to this critical asset based on approved classification. So what is basically saying that the process and tools which can be used to track, control, prevent, and correct secure critical asset, right? That has been used. So that is the part of like what are the critical assets that could be your sensitive information or either your organization systems, or it can be any resources, right? So now you have to define, right? If you have the resources, like who is the user that can access that particular this system or the resources. For example, information as well. Then who can access this particular? So all these things has to be defined, right? At some point. So this is what it's talk about. Now control version 8, sorry. The control version 8 also talk about similar thing, but it also has the aspect of the admin level perspective. That is not limited to the network related things or the system related only. It also talk about that the tools that create, assign, manage, and revoke access credentials. Okay, so you can manage as well as revoke access credential and privilege for user, administrator, and the service account for enterprise assets and software. So this is how it's quite differ for this. If you are still not clear, I have the diagram how it's differ from each other. So stay tuned. Now, if you think, right, okay, this is all the definition. Why this control is critical? Why are we discussing this? So as per that CIS control document, they are saying that encrypted data provides a level of assurance that even if data are compromised, it is impractical to access plain text without significant resources. That's true, right? If your data is compromised but is encrypted, right, then how the attacker get to know what is actual data it is. But however, controls should be also put in place to mitigate threat to data exfiltration in the first place. Now, what is data exploitation? So data exploitation, you have downloaded any malicious code, or am I attacker, right? I'm passing to another user. So that's again issue, right? So that is now another thing they are talking about. Many attacks occur across the network, while others involve physical theft of laptops, right? And other equipment holding sensitive information. Yet many cases, victims were not aware that sensitive data were leaving the system because they were not monitoring the outflows. So this particular sentence is talking about the physical theft of the laptops, right? Or I just move around by keeping my laptop aside and someone has access, but I'm not able to monitor that who has accessed this and what has been accessed. So there should be some monitoring data outflows in place. Some logging and monitoring should be placed. So that's it's talking about the movement of data across network boundary, both electrically and physically, must be carefully synchronized to minimize exposure to attacker, right? Again, the same thing they are talking about, that you should be have the proper network boundary in place. Now I have already talked that, hey, this version is 8 quite differ from version 7. So in the version 7, we have the control access based on need to know, that only talk about different network perspective and the physical access, right? While version 8 has the access control management, that is also include the control of admin privileges. So it talk about both aspect. So that's how the version 7 and version 8 differ from each other. But basically it, you say it's more detailed, and it also include the privilege access management, that is also include the palm related tools. What is palm? Don't worry, I will cover in the upcoming slides. But yeah, so it not only limited to the network access control, right? So yeah, now what is the according, what is version 8 is saying, that why is this critical? So there are some user activity that pose greater risk to enterprise, either because they are accessed from untrusted network or performing administrative function that allow ability to add, change or remove accounts, or make configuration changes to OS or application to make them less secure. So it's saying that if you have the user that have access administrator level, and that user should not supposed to, like, I'm an employee of the organization and I don't need the administrator level access, right? I just need the access which I require. So that could be dangerous, that I can just add, remove any account I want, or make configuration changes that leads to big loss for the organization. So this also enforce importance of using MFA and the privilege access management tools. So privilege access management tools is to in place to speed up your automate procedure to analyze privileges and monitoring, uh, right? So that's where the privilege access management, or you can say palm tools come. So they are talking about that. Then another, they are talking about some user have access to enterprise asset or data do not need for their role, right? That we already talked about, like immature process that give all user all access, like big no thing. But some organizations have this kind of access, and that leads to big loss for the enterprise. Now, another thing they are talking about, the local administrator privilege to user laptop is also issue. Why? Because as a malicious code installed or downloaded by user can have greater impact on the enterprise asset running as administrator, right? Like if the malware has been installed and you are the administrator, then I can do whatever I want to do. Like if I'm the local normal user, then I can't add or remove another user, right? But if the administrator, I can do whatever I want. So it have the greater attack surface. So that's what they are talking about. Now, why this control is critical? So if you don't have the proper permission in place, anyone on the internet can access your enterprise data. Like data is coming from untrusted network, and that is that should be that's supposed to be accessed by only trusted the laptops which is present, other devices which is present in trusted network, right? So that's again issue. Like think a scenario that you have the organization and you have some portal around it, and you are supposing that that should be only accessed by users within available your organization, all within your connected in VPN connection, right? But I'm outside and I'm accessing data from somewhere else, and as you don't have particular access control in place, so that's what is. And this access denied, I put it for like laptop unauthorized access, right? So you don't have the monitoring thing in place. So that's so most of time the three possible scenario, you have the access data from untrusted network. B, you have the overly permissive role to the user, like you have given so much permission to particular user. And either you have immature process that you all user all access, right? So yeah. So before we get started to talking about some controls it has, we have to discuss about little bit about implementation that include three groups. Group A with limited resources and the cybersecurity expertise available. Group T, group 2 is moderate resources and the cybersecurity expertise available. Group 3 is significant resources and the cybersecurity expertise available. Now, why we have group 1, group 2, group 3, and how it's applicable to subcontrols, that we are covering in upcoming slides. So, yeah. But before I discuss group 1, 2, 3, I just want to understand, I want you people to understand what is group 1, 2, and 3. So it would be more relatable to for you guys. So according to version 7, first is segment the network based on sensitivity, right? So it's talking about protect related. Why? Because segment the network based on label or the classification level of information stored on the server. Locate all the sensitive information on separate VLAN. So it's talk about if you have sensitive information, it should be located on separate VLAN, right? So this is that, and this is applicable to group 2, group 3, right? Now second, it's talk about enable firewall filtering between VLANs. So you have, if you have the big organization or the mature organization, you have different VLANs, right? So enable firewall filtering between VLAN to ensure that only authorized systems are able to communicate with other systems necessary to fulfill their specific responsibility. So it's quite obvious, right? You want to make sure that only authorized system can communicate with each other, right? So that's why third protection mechanism or the control is talking about disable workstation to workstation communication. Why? Because you want to like disable, or you don't want to have workstation to workstation communication, because you want to limit attackers ability to move laterally and compromise neighboring system. Think a scenario where your one of workstation is compromised somehow, but that workstation is also communicate with the other workstation, so eventually your all workstation going to compromise. So that's the reason you should disable all the workstation to workstation communication. Fourth is encrypt all sensitive information in transit. It is quite obvious for everyone that if you are having the communication, right, or passing the information through transit, it should be in the encrypted, so that attacker can't see what actual data are being passed. Now, 4.5 is talking about utilize an active discovery tool to identify sensitive data. So it's related to detect. So it's talking about utilize the active discovery tool to identify all sensitive information stored, processed, and transmitted by organization technology, including those on-site and the remote service provider, and update organization sensitive information inventory. Right, so you should have some active discovery tool that identify all the sensitive information being stored. So that's help in the detecting purpose. Then 4.6 is talking about protecting, that again quite obvious, protect information through access control list. And that is applicable to group 1, group 2, group 3. And what is talking about protect all information stored on system with file system, network share, claims, application, or database specific access control list. This control will enforce the principle that only authorized individual should have access to information based on the need to access information as a part of responsibilities. So if I break it down all this particular sentence, so it's saying that if this particular user has access to this, then only allow. Okay, so you first authorize the individual and then only provide the access to that particular resources. Now enforce access control to data through automated tool. Use automated tools such as force-based data loss prevention to enforce access control to data even when data copied off a system. All right. So that is 4.7. 4.8, encrypt sensitive information at rest. This is again quite obvious. If you are storing the data at rest, right, it should be encrypted, that even though your data being like somehow attacker got access the data which being stored at rest, still he or she not able to determine what kind of data because it's encrypted. So yeah. 4.9 is enforce detailed logging for access or changes to sensitive data. So that is also we have discussed like with the laptop scenario, but think about the scenario that any resource, right, that being changed, or any your database, like you have the DB table or the EC2 instance, anything being changed or anything has been, or any action performed, right, that has to be logged. And so you can monitor at what time what has been done, right? And this particular is talking about the sensitive data. So if we are having the database and that store any sensitive information, so you have the logging mechanism in place that monitor, hey, what has been done, or any changes being made, like I updated the your encrypted information to something else, I will have the entry that, hey, this has change being made. For that, you can use tools such as file integrity monitoring or the security information or event monitoring, right? Now, version 8 is talking about establish an access granting process. So it's like, again, the protect related, establish and follow process, preferably automated or granting access to enterprise assets on new hire rights and role change of user. Think a scenario where you have the big organization and there could be a multiple hires or multiple like fire, or you some people just resign, right? So you should be careful by granting the access or removing the access, right? So that the 1 and 2, let's talk about that, granting and the revoking, right? So that's about it. Require MFA for externally exposed application. Now you have the application that exposed to publicly. Okay, so for that you should enforce MFA. Enforcing MFA through Active Directory services or the SSO provider is satisfactory for that. Now you have the remote network access. So they are talking about provide MFA for the remote network access. Now 6.5 is talking about require MFA for administrative access. Quite obvious, if you have the administrator, you prefer to use MFA. So even though your credential being compromised, no one can access your account because they are not aware about your MFA code, right? So this is what it is. Establish and maintain inventory of authentication and authorization system. So what do you mean by that? Like it's saying that including those hosted on on-site or at the remote service provider, review and update inventory at minimum annually or more frequently. For example, you are having the all the details of that authentication and the authorization. So you should update your inventory like annually, or you can do monthly as well. It's up to you, but yeah. Centralized access control. That is again the protection mechanism that helps through that can be done through directory service or SSO, right? So it helps to centralize your access control, so you don't have the like, oh, I have to provide access to this user. This user is coming from this organization. No, you can use either SSO or the Active Directory, right? Define and maintain role-based access control. That's most important that we have talked about, that some organization just provide all users all access, right? That's wrong. See, if the user is a normal employee, provide the access whatever he or she needed to perform that particular task. If it's admin, provide the admin level access. If the user is developer, then see what kind of access he or she needed, provide that much only. So define and maintain role-based access control. So it's all about sub controls and how it's related to group 1, group 2, group 3. Now if we talk about research associated with it, right, like why are we actually discussing it? So the loss of control over protected or sensitive data by organization is serious threat to business operation and potential threat to national security as well. Think of scenario that if you don't have a control place in your organization and someone outside are able to access sensitive information of your organization, that is potential threat to your business data, right? Or someone just got the admin level, actually he or she just trying to play around with their configuration changes or getting the data, that is again threat to business operation. Think scenario that if it's impacting the national security as well. So yeah, these are the risks. Second is access from untrusted networks and performing administrative functions, that we already discussed. Then again, any malicious code installed or downloaded by user can have greater impact on enterprise asset running as an administrator. Think that my machine is compromised, right, by malicious code, and that machine having the administrator, I can just create the another user and impact them as well. So yeah, so it's having the bigger impact than we can ever think about it. You can have the data loss, you can have the integrity compromise. So it's compromising whole CIA, right? So yeah, it's quite critical to have it. Benefit to have all this sub control in place that ensure access is granted and revoked in systematic and preferably automated ways, because you are actively monitoring that, okay, who has access, at what time access, is the access is perfectly provided, if the user is not there, if is access being revoked. Enable multi-factor authentication for all users with privilege and remote access as well. Externally exposed or third-party application can be helpful to reduce attack surface. Now think that scenario that your admin somehow get compromised, but he or she not having the idea of multi-factor MFA code. That helps to reduce the attack surface. That is coming from the version 8, right? So yeah, again this is also, so yeah, you should be mindful by providing uh, access or revoking access as well. So yeah, benefit. There are numerous tools as well, or you can monitor who has access and at what time. Now tools that can help, that can be palm tools, active directory tools, right? And yeah, so these are the listed tools. This is all are the palm tools, like one identity that talk about hardware or the virtual device, cyber privilege, access security that manage like different kind. It helps to automate the access control for your organization. Same way you have Archon, Symantec, and Crontex Single Connect. Those are the different. These are the different tools that help to speed up your procedure for the access control or the monitoring as well, right? So these are the palm tools. You can use the active discovery tool as well. So yeah, thank you.